Look at all the blooms. This is Grouch's deck. This is where he likes to come out and sun, smoke the pipe, enjoy. All of there himself is. We're going to sit down and talk to you a second. Hi guys, it's Blackie, and today I'm back with my great mentor Francis McGowan, who I call Grouch. It's just a nice, warm, beautiful day in the south today.
It sure is. Yeah, it's about 88.
88. And this is the cool time of the year.
Oh, it is for us.
Oh yeah. I can remember when we had camped out. We would camp out every month of the year, but remember when we were clearing land down there on your land, and we would get with those two big swords and go down through, and you'd get to the far side and you'd just be sopping wet with sweat, and then you sat down and you chugged water for a half hour to cool down, and the girls would pull all the stuff out that we cut, and then we turned around and went back up through again, and then we went and got, what was it, axes in, and then finally it was chainsaws. God, I remember that.
Well, we didn't have much chainsaw, but the axes and the bush axes was cut the root systems out, so we didn't have topless regeneration and have to cut it again.
But you could sit on your deck of your cabin and look all the way to the creek.
Yeah, and we also opened up campsites.
And campsites, that's true.
Because the captain used to put his campsite back there, and he had an old basset hound named Rufus. Rufus would go wandering from time to time. Everybody had to get up and look for him because we had another county only a mile or two away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things they got these days, I wish we had had back then, was today they've got tracking collars. That's a little thing you put in your dog's collar on the dog, like a bell would be, and you can put on your phone. It'll show you exactly where he's at. You know, that would have been so helpful. So many times we've had to go looking for dogs.
Yeah.
Especially with a basset, because bassets get a whiff of something and they wander off. They'll follow it forever.
Well, I was talking with one of my girls around the other day. In about 1981 or 82, we had a state rendezvous up near Demopolis.
I remember it.
And you and the captain came up for the first time. You were about 18 or 19. You were not called Blackie, and the captain wasn't called Captain. And y'all got there, and the guy in charge had never been in charge of anything, and he messed that up too. So we took over the gate, and I just gave you the box of money.
Yeah.
You and the captain, and y'all went down and checked everybody in.
Yep.
Never seen y'all before, and y'all were trusted.
Yeah. He didn't ask my name. He just wanted to know if we could run the gate.
And that was the beginning of our Red Wars.
Yes.
Y'all were the first two.
Well, now, I'll be honest, I always thought the first two was you and Don and Squire.
No, I met Squire and Don. A little after that, I was camped up at Jasper.
Yeah.
And this guy came by wearing a white mushroom on top of his head. And he had leather shoes he had made, and they came to a point and curled back like he wanted to put a veil on them.
Yeah.
And he was wearing a big pink breech clout.
Yeah.
And I thought, I gotta meet that guy.
And yet, you know, Squire was actually a computer programmer. He was extremely intelligent.
Right. Very intelligent.
Oh, but he was not what you call a seamstress. He really couldn't seem to get the idea of how to sew stuff.
And then Don worked for the federal government mapping underground areas, and he left there and went to setting the sight system on missiles around the world.
Yeah.
You're very intelligent. And he traveled with Squire because they needed to share a truck and money. And he was a bagpiper, and in his spare time he was a thespian, an actor.
Yeah.
And he was in a lot of plays down in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And so they added to our group. And then came Swamp Owl and Forest Moor.
Yep.
And we just built from there till we had about 20 or
I
25.
think about 25, the Red Wolves.
Yep, and we would run these big major campouts. And Ann made everybody a red colonial shirt. And the first day we'd all wear kilts and that and our swords. And we'd be piped in a formation. And the mothers so trusted us, they told their kids, if anything gets wrong, if you get lost, find the red shirt, they will take care of you.
Remember when it was a hot southeastern, because it had been mid-April and warmed up that year, and all of our shirts had got so funky by the middle of the week. And was it Squire or Don that took the extra shirt and went in to find a laundromat? And remember old Doc John gave him a white shirt to wash? And he had a pink shirt.
Yep.
So he didn't want a red shirt, but he ended up with a pink shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a good time.
Yeah, it was a very good group. When we planned a rendezvous, we'd gather over here at first once a quarter, and then the second year once a month, and then the last 2 months once a week, to make sure that we had the village set up, the games for the children set up, the competition set up, the campsite set up, and the rules set up. Remember, our rules was, there was never a don't do this. Do make your fire at night. Do put your tent up far enough off the road that we can get an emergency vehicle in, you know. Do be considerate of your neighbors. And then at nighttime we had a watch. 2 men walked that camp the whole time, looking for a kid that woke up and walked out of a tent.
Yep.
Or looking for a fire that was blank, that flared up.
Right.
We just kept that camp safe. And Squire went around every day with a broom over his shoulder and 25 rolls of toilet paper on it.
Yep.
And went to every potty, cleaned them out real good, washed them out, and put in fresh paper every single day.
Every day.
And the campers all said, a second, Freckles, don't eat that flour. And the campers all said that was the first place they had ever been to that had clean potties every single day.
Yep. We knew how to run a good camp.
Yes, we did.
Well, let me show you something, guys. This happened because there was a Grouch called me up and said, I want you to come over on this weekend and we're going to model. Remember that?
Sure.
And I said, do I have to get on a table and is there money involved? And he said, oh yeah, there'll be plenty of tables and money involved. Yeah, right. And so he wanted me to bring my historic gear, and what it was this gentleman named Henry. And
Henry Kinsey.
Henry Kinsey. And Henry competed in national photo competitions where you would submit a photo and it would be judged. And he'd won a lot of national awards. And so he wanted the two of us to be models wearing our historic garb. And so we had gone over and he had us use the arch of swords, we wore our Scottish kilts, we did all of that stuff. We was out there probably about 2 hours taking pictures. We had like 3 clothes changes we had to do, and finally he wanted us to put on our long hunter gear. Well, this is what he and I would do our witchcraft with and go hunting with and go camping with anyway, so it isn't exactly a costume. This was the clothes we wore during those events, you know, when you're going to be working a week or 2 weeks at a time.
This is the clothing of 1770.
Yep, 1770.
Yep, when you show on the trousers, I'm wearing a lace-up homemade boots.
Yep.
The heavy linen brown trousers, and then the deerskin leather woodsman shirt with cape.
Yep.
and you're wearing the regular long hunter, long green shirt, short trousers with breech clout, and both of us have our rifles. I've got old Make 'em Come, which is a copy of Daniel Boone's rifle, and I think you had a Thule maybe.
No, what I had there was my Tennessee rifle, which was a pull boy, a plain common man hunting gun. But I will show you a very good picture of this in just a minute. I don't know about glare here, what you can see, but that's Grouch and that's me.
25 years ago.
25 years ago. And the funny thing about this picture was, and this is the one that won the national championship, was, it wasn't posed.
No, it was impromptu.
Impromptu, because we had stood and posed in all this place for a better part of 2 hours, and Henry had said the sun was starting to go down, and he wanted us to get with the sunlight was just a certain way. And he asked us to walk over this way, and we went to gather, just got our stuff and went to walking, and he's got to get all his camera stuff. And me and Grouch were walking side by side, and I saw in the tall grass, I could see patches of ground, there was a bobcat track. And I stopped and squatted down and went to looking at the bobcat track. The old mentor here went to looking over my shoulder to make sure I was doing it correctly and knew what I was looking at. We was talking about the pressure imprints and the way it was going, and you could look up through the grass, and I pointed up like that, and I said, you can see the V, and you can see a V in the grass, meaning that cat had passed probably within an hour before we got there. And suddenly Henry went, hold on, stay where you are. And that was the picture he took. That's the picture that won the national title. We weren't posing, we were just being us. So, back when we were young and beautiful.
Well, on almost any given weekend, if you had seen us and we were camping, that's what we'd have been wearing.
That's what we wore.
And that's what we cooked in, ate in, canoed in.
Slept on the ground in.
Leather in the summer, leather in the winter.
Yep. You just added a wool layer on top if it was winter. But I'm here to tell you, wearing a breech clout and leggings and a long hunter shirt is the most comfortable in the woods.
It sure is.
I mean, you got flexibility, you can walk, you can twist. Now, other than the moccasins always suck because you want to wear modern shoes compared to that. But other than that, I would have no problem wearing it today,
Well, I had about a half a dozen pair of moccasins. And I had some really heavy, and I had some light. And depending on what I was doing, was what I was wearing. But if a pair got wet, it didn't bother me when I got back. I took them and my socks off.
Yeah.
Put on another pair of socks and put on a fresh pair of moccasins and sat down in front of the tent and poured some stale hot coffee in a cup and lit my pipe, and all was right in my world.
It was good to go again. We cooked in them things. Remember when we did the Scottish games and we were doing our clothing and everything, and we had that fire out there, was cooking, had coffee on, and heating up a pot of stew for lunch because we was going to be out there all day, and that lady come up and said, is that a real fire? No ma'am, it's a very expensive hologram.
We were down in Florida on a big ranch. Wonderful camp out in the springtime. And one day when we woke up, about 24 cows and one great big bull with them 6-foot horns.
Texas Longhorns.
Was in the camp.
Yep.
And Blackie went out there with a wiping stick and told him to get out of the camp, and kept doing that and ran him out of camp. And we decorated you for that because we'd never seen such stupidity in our life.
Well, now you got to understand, there's 1,000+ people camping in this pasture, and that bull somebody had left the gate open. Probably some kid had left the gate open, and then that bull and his little remuda had come in there, and all of them got these great big old long horns. His was over 6 foot tip to tip. And the owner of the land had told us he was a mean bull. Don't go anywhere near him because he's likely to try to get you. And so whenever somebody come running up to us and told us that that bull was in there, my concern was, these cows are not on the outskirts. They've got in amongst the tents now. And people are sleeping or in these tents. If these cattle stampede, somebody's going to get stoned. You know, children. And my thought was, if one kid comes out and yells or hollers or whatever and spooks these cattle, oh boy. And so I grabbed what he's calling a wiping stick. It was a ramrod for a gun, and it's just a wooden dowel about 4 feet long. And so I'm wearing a bright red shirt and my kilt, had my Balmoral cocked over to the side, and I go walking up there. And I see him, he's kind of like in the middle of the road, and his 6 or 8 ladies are around him out amongst the tent. And probably 50 yards out, I hollered at him, you know, like I had been taught as a boy around bulls and stuff, like made a loud noise and flipped my arms up and kept walking at him. He turned around, he looked at me, straightened up his horns, turned to face me. I kept coming, don't break stride. I got about 30 yards out, and I bellered at him again, hollering, get, you know. He dipped his head, and I thought, he's going to come at me. You watch this, he's going to come at me. Of course, everybody's peeking out of tents watching what I'm doing because they hear me hollering. Finally, I got about like 15 yards from him, and I hollered just, coo, coo, as loud as I could at him, real loud. And I saw his ears kind of go back, and I knew then I had him.
Yeah, coo, coo.
Coo, coo, you know, back up.
Call for cattle.
Call for cattle. And he kind of, when he turned his head and he started to turn around, about the time he got one step, I was at him, wiping him on the butt with that stick, going, get going, get going, get going. Well, the ladies follow him. And so between me and 5 or 10 minutes of hitting cows on the butt and steering them, I got them back through that gate and closed that gate. I got a standing ovation from about 300 people.
One of the things we caught down there at that time, because there's a pond right outside our main gate, is we caught a genuine 100-year-old snapping turtle about this big.
Oh God,
around,
that thing, yeah.
that had moss that thick on his back.
Yeah.
And a head like that.
Yeah.
And he was bad news. And then nobody, of course, want to kill him or anything like that. We put him back in the pond. But that is the oldest turtle I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah, it was a dinosaur.
I feel sorry for people who have never lived a life, and our life is still going on.
Mm-hmm.
There are still buck skinners out there,
Mm-hmm.
but the life that we lived and enjoyed and what have you.
Yeah.
When the children would be out there playing, 50 kids running, laughing, playing games from the 17 and 1800s, there were 100 parents and other people sitting there watching.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time they said anything is if the kid was going to hurt himself or hurt somebody else.
Yep.
Other than that, let them go.
Let them play. I was thinking the other day when you and I went down to the Delta, remember we had just got in and that speedboat went by. And them 3-foot waves, he's in his canoe, I'm in my canoe, and we had just turned nose into it. And that 3-foot up and down, that idiot was running through with that high-speed boat. And here we are, said you had a basset hound in a boat about to get seasick and bobbing along. Oh, yeah.
But I had a cure in there. I had a .22 rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he'd have come back by, I was going to educate him a little.
Yeah. Because there was no reason to be running that fast in there. It wasn't them
No.
big old bayliner boats.
But he only ran that upper part because we had all them damn logs
Yep.
between us and the Delta, the real Delta.
Yep. Well,
Chop, 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 pull through.
oh, yeah.
Alligators, moccasins, chop, chop, pull through.
Yep.
Move over snake, get out of the way gator.
Yep. when we came around that bend, that big old huge oak had fallen off and was now plugging up the waterway. And you had to high center into the top of that oak and pulled out your kukri and went to cutting a path through an oak tree so that we could drag over limbs and go under this one and everything to get through that. I remember that. That was a tough day.
God invented the kukri.
Thank God for the kukri. And old Biscuit was just having the time of the life, just sitting there.
Sitting there looking.
Just looking around,
But
high
once
banks.
we got through there,
Yeah.
and I broke out the fly rod, you and I both, there was so many brim and small bass that just said, come get me, and jumped in the canoe.
You didn't need a lot of fishing skill. They were that aggressive. You just throw something that hit the water and they're going to hit it. It was a good time. We spent, 5 days down there.
Yep, we passed Indian mounds.
Yeah.
Built way out there where God forgot.
I think we calculated out that we had canoed about 125 miles.
Oh yeah, up and down.
Up and down, back and forth. Yep, it was a good time.
But then when you got down to that delta, down where the Dolly Parton Bridge and all of that is, it was hard to believe how wide that river got, and all those sloughs that went left and right, and just full of fish that nobody ever went in there and got.
Yeah.
And here with a fly rod, you could make a fool out of yourself.
Yeah. At the right time of the year, I mean, you could come up from the bay and get in there.
And get in the delta and come on up.
But they don't want to do it. The people that are in the bay, they're wanting saltwater fish. And the people who are freshwater fishing, they want to go up further. They're hunting bass and brim. They don't even pay any attention to this transition between. That's just bayou back there. I don't want to get into that. I'll get my motor tore up or something. So.
Well, when you got a paddle, it's hard to tear it up.
You just paddle in real quiet and smooth, and you start flicking that fly rod out there, hitting.
That's one of the best times is when the only thing you hear is water dripping off your paddle back into the creek or bay.
Whatever. Yep. I miss them days. I really do.
We had camped at Oak Mountain for a frozen foot in January. And we had been clearing out an area that the state park said we could have for a primitive area if we could clear. So we came up there one weekend out of the month, and we had piled trash about 30, 40 feet high and 20 feet around. And we woke up one Sunday morning and Squire had set it on fire.
Oh, I remember that.
Big.
Oh.
Right in the middle of the park. And here come the fire trucks. Oh.
And the park rangers.
Yes, and the park rangers.
And you're sitting there all innocent going, but sir, you told us to clear it. We cleared it. Is it not policy of the Forest Service to burn the dry deadfall?
Yeah.
Of course, you'd been exposed to the forestry. You knew what to say and how to say it. That kept us from spending the night in jail.
Yeah.
Love old Squire, but to him, fire is always going out. I don't care.
He could put out a blazing 20-foot flame in about 3 minutes if he had a poke stick and walked up there and started poking.
Yes.
He'd find out a way to cut the oxygen off every time.
He was
good
special.
at that. You know, one day we had these kids up there, and we had tomahawk rock always set up because we competed with it. And you and Swamp Owl were sitting there, and the kids asked about throwing the hawk and all. And I stood up and took two. I had about a half a dozen that were all just alike. And I threw them down there, and both of them hit directly center. And then I picked up one and split them two. I didn't do that again.
Smart move.
Yeah, but both of y'all said, see, that's why we call him the Grouch.
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
smart enough to know when to quit.
Quit right then.
We were putting on a rendezvous for the Boy Scouts over in Daleville in '96. That's one where Crooked Stick and Jack came over to it.
Is that the one with all the rain?
That was the second year.
Right, because I was at one with all the rain and their tent fell down.
Yes.
And I'd gone out there with 12-inch stakes the day before and put them in.
You got it.
Yeah.
Make sure of it. I remember Jack saying, Blackie, I've used 6-inch stakes all my life. I don't need nothing but 6-inch stakes. By God, he was out there in the pouring rain beating 6-inch stakes deeper and deeper.
Their tents went down.
Yeah.
I put 12 inches wooden stakes in.
Yeah, we were making sure.
Yeah, surveyor's stakes.
But on Sunday morning, they had that little, the Boy Scout camps, they'd have their little services. And Music Man, who was putting it on,
Yeah.
I want to say Chuck. I'm probably saying that wrong. It might have been the Music Man's what we call
Well,
him.
Chuck Simons was the bagpipe player.
Right. But he, that morning he got up there and he was talking and he was at the Hawk Block. And so you got 300 kids sitting around and he's getting up there and he's a lay minister. And he threw the Hawk, missed the block, missed everything. Then he asked one of the lead scoutmasters to get up there. He threw, it hit backwards and didn't stick. And then he turns around to Blackie and wants Blackie to get up and throw a tomahawk. Now, I hadn't been warned at all about this.
They never do.
No warning, no nothing. No prep, not nothing. And so I get up and I pulled my tomahawk out of Make 'em Cry and stepped up there and just did a Hail Mary and let it go. And by God, it stuck. Of course, all the kids are going, Blackie, Blackie. Oh, no pressure, no pressure. It stuck. I was the most shocked person there, I'll tell you what. So he did his thing about try again, etc. After it was over, he said, I'm so glad you stuck it. I was going to have to keep calling names till somebody stuck one. He's like,
When they really wanted something done, they knew they could come to you because we studied it.
yes.
They could come to me, I studied it.
Mm-hmm.
They could come to my brother Jack, he studied it.
Mm-hmm.
Now his specialty was the Creek Indian.
Yeah.
I mean, he could look at an arrowhead and tell you where it was made and where the stone was traded out of, because I had given him the books. And most of the flint that was used down here was traded out of South America. It came up through Mexico and was traded and became arrowheads, spear point, knives,
A lot of history down here.
Yes, it is.
Several times now, you and I had been at things, and they've asked us to talk history about the Deep South.
Yeah.
And I remember we were at one of the things, I don't remember where we were, but I remember it was you and me and little Jeff, and we'd walked in, and the guy had said, would you be willing, you and your group be willing to talk about history? And you said, whoa, partner, you got to narrow that down. Do you want us to start at creation and bring you up to speed, or when? No, could you just talk about from here to here? And you went, oh, okay. Blackie, you do this, Jeff, you do this, and I'll do this. And we'd get up impromptu and do remember that time it was about 24 history professors and college professors, and they wanted us to talk to them.
I remember I was teaching history, and Dr. McDonald from Auburn was in the group, and he had one or two of his assistants there. And I stood up and said, all right, everybody who knows who the first president of the United States was, hold up your hand. Everybody.
Yeah.
And I said, who? George Washington. You're wrong. Sit down.
Yep.
Who? George Washington. You're wrong. Sit down. The first president of the United States was John Hanson. Because we became a nation in 1783 with the Treaty of Ghent.
Yes.
And Washington didn't become a president to 1787 with that election.
Yes.
So who ran the United States all that time? A different president of the United States every year, and Hanson was the first.
Yep.
And Dr. McDonald says, you know, I think we better go back to class.
Well, guys, we're going to call it quits right there. We've had some companies show up, want to visit with Grouch, so we're just going to call it short. But, brother, thank you so much for talking to me today. I treasure every moment with you.
Right. Well, I hope that they enjoyed walking down memory lane with us, because we got memories that other people will never have.
They'll never believe us, but
That's
yes.
right. Yeah.
But we were there. We've got the proof and the scars to prove it.
That's right. That's right. And we got the miseries.
Yes.
The mosquito bites.
Oh, God.
The frozen water, breaking ice with a canoe.
Going,
Yes.
you trying to shave and ice forming on your face. It was so cold.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Ice formed on my.
He
on
wet
the
his
side of my
face to do his razor, and it froze on his face. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. Till next time, I'm Blackie and Grouch, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.